The air in the grand ballroom of the Astoria Hotel is thick with the scent of money and gardenias. It's a glittering, cavernous space where crystal chandeliers drip light onto a sea of tailored tuxedos and jewel-toned gowns. The ambient noise is a low, self-satisfied hum, the clinking of champagne flutes, the murmur of stock prices, and the performative laughter of the city's elite. To Alara, it is a familiar symphony of power. She navigates the currents of the room with a practiced, almost invisible grace, a silver tray of bacon-wrapped figs balanced perfectly on her palm. Her uniform is immaculate, a starched black and white ensemble that serves as a kind of camouflage, allowing her to move through the gilded forest unseen. Her target is the densest cluster of gravity in the room, Alastair Finch. He stands near the marble fireplace, not just a man but an institution, his voice a confident baritone that cuts effortlessly through the chatter. He is telling a story, his hands gesturing with the easy authority of someone who has never been told no. The men and women encircling him hang on every word, their smiles bright and hungry. Alastair Finch is the CEO of a global logistics empire, a titan of industry whose whims could make or break markets, and tonight, he is the celebrated host of this multi-million-dollar charity gala. Alara approaches the circle, her steps silent on the plush Persian rug. Her job is simple: offer the canapés, smile demurely, and retreat. It is a dance she has perfected over hundreds of nights just like this one. She finds a small opening in the circle, pivots slightly, and extends the tray toward the king. "Excuse me, sir," she says, her voice soft but clear. The words carry the gentle, melodic lilt of her Nigerian upbringing, a sound as out of place in this room as a wildflower in a sterile greenhouse. Alastair stops mid-sentence. The entire circle falls silent. He turns his head slowly, his steel-gray eyes taking a full second to register her presence, as if adjusting focus from a distant horizon to a speck of dust on a lens. He looks from her face, down to her uniform, then to the tray of meticulously arranged appetizers. A slow, condescending smile spreads across his lips. "We're discussing multi-billion-dollar mergers," he announces, his voice projecting for the benefit of his audience. He gestures vaguely toward her tray. "Not whatever that is." He pauses, letting the insult land, letting his circle absorb the sheer audacity of the interruption. Then he looks directly at her, a glint of cruel amusement in his eyes. "Try to keep up." A wave of sycophantic laughter ripples through the group. It's not a genuine laugh, but a signal of allegiance, a social cue to affirm that they too are on the inside of the joke, and she is firmly on the outside. The heat rises in Alara's cheeks, a sudden, unwelcome blush of shame and anger. Her training kicks in, a rigid mask of professional neutrality snapping into place. She keeps her spine straight, her chin level. Her gaze remains fixed on a point just over his shoulder, a technique she learned to maintain composure in the face of indignity. The tray in her hand does not tremble, but inside, a storm rages. To be dismissed is one thing. It is the currency of her profession. To be made into a punchline is another entirely. She can feel dozens of eyes on her, not seeing a person but a prop in Alastair Finch's casual theater of dominance. It is a familiar, searing humiliation, the kind that reminds you that in a room full of powerful people, your very existence can be treated as an inconvenience. She wonders, as she holds her breath against the stinging in her eyes, would you endure this? How does one swallow a public stripping of their dignity and still offer a polite, deferential nod? Her right hand, hidden for a moment by the tray, instinctively brushes against her lapel. Her fingers find the familiar, cool metal of a small pin, its surface worn smooth over the years. It is a simple first aid emblem, a red cross on a white background, no larger than her thumbnail. It is a relic from another life, a quiet testament to a person she once was, a person who commanded respect in rooms far more important than this one. The feel of it under her fingertips is a grounding force, a secret anchor in a swirling sea of contempt. It reminds her who she is, even when the world is trying its hardest to tell her she is nothing. She holds Alastair's mocking gaze for a fraction of a second longer than is comfortable, a tiny, silent act of defiance that no one but her will ever recognize. Then, with a quiet, almost imperceptible nod, she retracts the tray. "My apologies, sir," she murmurs, the words perfectly professional, betraying none of the fire inside. Without another glance, she turns and melts back into the crowd, the wave of laughter following her like a wake. She is once again invisible, just another part of the scenery, leaving Alastair Finch to resume his story, the momentary disruption already forgotten. But the insult lingers in the air, a bitter taste that no amount of champagne can wash away. Lara forces her body into a state of professional calm, but her mind is a hornet's nest. She retreats to the relative anonymity of the service corridors, where the gilded fantasy of the ballroom gives way to the harsh reality of stainless steel and fluorescent lights. She takes a deep, steadying breath, the kind she used to take before starting a 12-hour shift in a chaotic emergency room. The memory is a phantom limb, a life she no longer leads but that still defines her. Here, her skills are reduced to carrying a tray. Her knowledge is an irrelevant footnote. She exchanges her empty tray for a full one, the repetitive motion a small comfort. She has to go back in there. She has to face the room that just laughed at her, has to pass the man who made her the butt of his joke. This is the job. You swallow the bitterness and keep pouring the wine. When she re-enters the ballroom, Alastair Finch has moved on, his booming voice now dissecting a recent political scandal with theatrical flair. He has already forgotten her. For him, the moment was a fleeting display of power as meaningless as swatting a fly. For her, it is a fresh scar. She navigates the room, her focus now on a different table. It's where the Finch family is seated. Alastair's wife, a woman who looks like she was sculpted from ice and diamonds, is engaged in a vapid conversation with another socialite. But Alara's attention is drawn to the small girl seated between them, Lily. The child is quiet, pushing a piece of asparagus around her plate with a tiny silver fork. Her shoulders are slumped, and she keeps glancing toward her father, a hopeful, anxious look on her face that goes completely unnoticed. She saw what happened. She heard the laughter, and unlike the adults, she hasn't yet learned to pretend that cruelty is a form of entertainment. Lara feels a pang of sympathy for the girl, a lonely island in a sea of her parents' ambition. As Alara approaches to refill the water glasses, Lily looks up, her eyes wide and dark. They are eyes that see more than they let on. Alara offers her a small, conspiratorial smile, a silent acknowledgement that says, "I see you too." Lily's face brightens for a moment, a tiny flicker of connection in the cold, transactional atmosphere. It's then that Alara hears it again, closer this time. A faint, high-pitched wheeze as the girl exhales. It's the subtle sound of constricted airways, a sound her trained ears pick up instantly. A mild asthmatic episode, perhaps triggered by stress or an allergen in the air. She scans the table, no inhaler in sight. Does anyone else notice? Does anyone else care enough to listen? Alastair's wife briefly turns her attention to her daughter, but not with concern. "Lily, darling, stop playing with your food, sit up straight. People are watching." The words are clipped, a command, not a comfort. The misjudgment of the child is as casual and complete as the misjudgment of the waitress had been moments before. Everyone in this world is playing a part, and Lily is failing her role as the perfect, silent accessory. Lily's shoulders slump even further. Alara feels a protective instinct flare within her, hot and unwelcome. It is not her place. She is just the help. She is there to pour the water, clear the plates, and remain invisible. But the sound of that wheeze stays with her, a tiny, discordant note in the grand symphony, a warning that only she seems to have heard. The evening wears on, a slow procession of speeches, awards, and forced smiles. Alara continues her silent orbit around the room, a ghost in a crisp uniform. She watches Alastair Finch accept an award for his philanthropic endeavors, his speech full of platitudes about giving back and corporate responsibility. The hypocrisy is a bitter pill, but she swallows it down. She has bills to pay. The main course arrives, a thick, pan-seared filet mignon. It's a dish designed to impress, a testament to the wealth and excess of the evening. The guests murmur their approval, the sound of silver cutlery on porcelain filling the air. At the Finch table, Lily is trying to cut her steak. The piece is too large, the knife unwieldy in her small hands. She glances at her father, who is now locked in an intense, low-voiced conversation with a man to his right, his brows furrowed over some urgent business matter. He is present in body but 1,000 miles away in mind. Lily, desperate for a sliver of his attention, decides to spear the large piece of steak and eat it anyway. She wants to show him she can handle it, that she is a big girl. The first moment of trouble is silent. A look of surprise crosses her face. She tries to swallow, but the piece of meat is lodged, a perfect, unyielding plug in her trachea. Her eyes widen. This isn't a game. This is real. Panic begins to bloom in her chest, cold and sharp. She can't breathe. She can't make a sound. The universal sign of choking is a desperate, silent plea. She stands up, knocking her chair backward with a clatter. The sudden noise draws a few glances. Her hands fly to her throat. Her mother, startled from her conversation, looks over with annoyance. "Lily, for heaven's sake, what is the matter with you? You've made a scene." But then she sees her daughter's face. The skin is already turning a dusky, terrifying shade of gray, her lips a faint blue. The mother's expression shifts from irritation to pure, unadulterated terror. She screams. The scream shatters the ballroom's genteel facade. All conversation stops. Heads whip around. Alistair finally looks away from his business associate, his mind still catching up to the scene unfolding just feet away. He sees his daughter, standing, choking, dying. And in that moment, Alistair Finch, the master of the universe, the man who commands armies of lawyers and brokers, the titan of industry, completely and utterly freezes. His power, his influence, his entire empire, all of it is reduced to nothing. He is just a father watching his child suffocate. His face drains of all color, his mouth opening and closing uselessly, no sound coming out. He shouts for a doctor, his voice cracking with a helplessness he has never known. The room erupts into chaos. People are standing, shouting advice, fumbling for their phones. It is a room full of the most powerful people in the city, and not a single one of them knows what to do. The clock is ticking. A life is on the line, and the fragile illusion of control has been irrevocably broken. In the swirling vortex of panic, Alara is an island of absolute stillness. For her, the chaos is a focusing lens. The shouting, the screams, the frantic, useless movements of the crowd, it all fades into a distant hum. Her training, dormant for years, floods back into her veins, sharp and clear and urgent. She sees not a billionaire's daughter, but a patient. An airway obstruction. Hypoxia. She has approximately 60 seconds of useful consciousness left. She sets her tray down on a nearby table. The clatter of the silver water pitcher is the only sound she makes, a sharp, decisive click that cuts through the noise. She moves not with the hesitant shuffle of a waitress, but with the purposeful stride of a first responder. People part before her, their panicked faces turning to watch the woman in the uniform move with such unnerving certainty. She doesn't ask for permission. She doesn't wait for instructions. She circles the table and positions herself directly behind the still flailing Lily. "Lily, I am going to help you," she says, her voice low and firm, an anchor in the storm. She knows the girl probably can't process the words, but the tone conveys competence and control. Her arms wrap around the child's small torso. She makes a fist with one hand, placing the thumb side against the abdomen, just above the navel. Her other hand grasps the fist. It is a textbook position, an action she has performed countless times in simulations and twice before in a hospital cafeteria. Her body knows what to do even if her mind is racing. She delivers a quick upward thrust. It is a controlled, violent act designed to use the air trapped in the lungs as a force to expel the obstruction. Lily's body lurches forward. Nothing. Alara repositions, her focus absolute. She thrusts again, harder this time, pouring all of her strength into the precise, life-saving motion. A small, dark object shoots out of Lily's mouth, landing on the white tablecloth with a wet thud. Lily collapses forward, a great, ragged, whooping gasp of air flooding her starved lungs. The sound is the most beautiful thing Alara has ever heard. It is followed by a fit of coughing, then a series of shuddering, terrified sobs. But she is breathing. The color is already beginning to return to her cheeks. The entire ballroom seems to hold its collective breath, the silence now one of stunned awe. A junior staffer, a young man who had been hiding by the service station, stands with his jaw hanging open, his eyes wide with disbelief. He just watched the waitress, the one they all ignore, the one Alastair Finch humiliated, single-handedly pull a child back from the brink of death while everyone else screamed. He saw her hands, steady and sure, perform a miracle. He, like everyone else in that room, will never look at a person in a uniform the same way again. The quiet competence of her actions has spoken more loudly and more powerfully than any voice in the room. If that happened to you, what would you do? The question hangs in the air, a silent indictment of their collective helplessness. The immediate crisis is over, but its aftershock continues to ripple through the room. Lily is still sobbing, her small body trembling with the traumatic memory of suffocation. Her mother rushes forward, but her movements are jerky, her words a high-pitched, useless babble of "oh, my baby, my poor baby," which only seems to frighten the child more. Alastair remains frozen, his face a mask of shock, his feet rooted to the floor. Alara doesn't step away. Her role as a first responder isn't finished. She gently turns Lily toward her, away from the frantic energy of her parents and the prying eyes of the crowd. She kneels, bringing herself down to the child's level. Her hands, which moments ago were instruments of forceful rescue, are now impossibly gentle. She brushes the hair from Lily's damp forehead. "It's okay now," she says, her voice a low, soothing murmur. Her accent, the very thing Alastair had used as a weapon against her, is now a sound of profound comfort and safety. "You were so brave. Just breathe with me, slow and easy. In and out," Alara demonstrates, taking a slow, exaggerated breath. Lily watches her, her sobs beginning to subside, her ragged gasps slowly evening out to match Alara's rhythm. She is still terrified, but in Alara's calm presence she finds an anchor. Without a word, Lily launches herself into Alara's arms, burying her face in the starched fabric of her uniform, her small hands clutching the material as if it were a life raft. Alara holds her, rocking gently, whispering reassurances. She doesn't see the waitress uniform or the billionaire's child. She sees a scared little girl who needs comfort. In that embrace, a powerful, unspoken bond is forged. It is a connection born not of status or wealth, but of a shared moment of terror and the profound gratitude of a rescued child. For the first time all night, Lily feels safe. Alastair finally moves, taking a few stumbling steps forward. He stops and stares at the scene before him. He sees his daughter, who so often shies away from his own awkward hugs, clinging to a stranger. He sees the woman he publicly derided now holding the most precious thing in his life with a tenderness he himself struggles to show. He sees her uniform, a symbol of servitude he had so casually mocked, now transformed into a shield of safety for his child. The cognitive dissonance is a physical blow. He opens his mouth to say something, thank you perhaps, or an apology, but the words won't come. What can he possibly say that would bridge the chasm between his actions and hers? He is a spectator in the most important moment of his daughter's life, a silent, stunned witness to a quiet power he never knew existed. The spell of quiet intimacy is broken by the arrival of new players. Two men in sharp, dark suits materialize at Alastair's side. They are his crisis management team, summoned by a frantic text from a junior executive. Their faces are grim, their eyes scanning the room, assessing the damage. They are not concerned with Lily's emotional state or Alara's heroism. They see only a brand in jeopardy, a narrative spiraling out of control. One of the men, a sharp-faced individual named Marcus, quickly takes charge. He murmurs something in Alastair's ear, guiding him toward his still sobbing wife and child. He dispatches the other man to handle the hotel management. Marcus's focus, however, is on Alara. He sees her not as a savior but as a variable, an unpredictable element that must be contained. As paramedics arrive and begin to check on Lily, Marcus approaches Alara. He separates her from the family with a polite but firm gesture, leading her a few feet away into the shadow of a large marble column. "That was incredible work," he says, his voice a smooth, practiced baritone. It's the voice of a man who can sell ice in a blizzard. Mr. Finch is eternally grateful. He wants to show his appreciation. He pulls a checkbook from his inner pocket along with a folded document. He has authorized me to offer you this for your trouble, and we'll just need you to sign a standard non-disclosure agreement. It's just to ensure the family's privacy during this difficult time. Alara looks from his slick, insincere face to the papers in his hand. The check is blank, a silent invitation to name her price. The document is an NDA, a legal cage designed to buy her silence. The trap is laid, elegant and brutal in its simplicity. They are trying to transactionalize a human act. They want to purchase her story, edit her out of it, and replace her with a sanitized corporate statement. The incident was handled swiftly by highly trained hotel staff. They want to reduce her heroism to a service rendered, a problem solved with money. She understands instantly. This isn't a reward, it's a muzzle. Signing that paper means agreeing to her own erasure. It means letting them tell the world that she was just a nameless, faceless part of the hotel machinery. It means invalidating the very real connection she just forged with a terrified child. The insult is, in its own way, more profound than Alastair's initial mockery. He had dismissed her humanity. Marcus is now trying to purchase it. Her quiet act of competence has made her a threat to their carefully constructed world, and they will pay any price to make that threat disappear. Alara looks at the blank check, then at the NDA. The paper is crisp, the letters sharp. It represents a way out of her financial struggles, a sum of money that could change her life. All it would cost is her truth. All it would cost is her dignity. She meets Marcus's gaze, her own eyes clear and steady. "No," she says. The word is quiet, but it lands in the space between them with the weight of an anvil. Marcus's professional smile falters for a fraction of a second. He is not used to the word no. "I don't think you understand," he says, his voice taking on a harder edge. "Mr. Finch is being extremely generous." "I understand perfectly," Alara replies, her voice still quiet but now laced with a strength that surprises him. "What I did was not for trouble. It was for a child. You can't put a price on that." She pushes the checkbook and the document back toward him with 2 fingers. "I will not be signing anything." Her refusal is a declaration of war. It is an act of defiance that the system cannot compute. Marcus's face hardens. He turns and has a hushed, urgent conversation with the hotel manager, a man whose entire career depends on keeping clients like Alastair Finch happy. The manager, sweating profusely, hurries over to Alara. "Ma'am," he begins, his voice trembling slightly. You've violated several guest interaction protocols. You put the hotel at liability. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You are suspended pending a full investigation." The betrayal is swift and absolute. She is being punished for her heroism. She is being cast out to protect a billionaire who couldn't even protect his own child. The injustice of it is staggering. 2 security guards appear, their presence a silent, looming threat. They don't touch her, but their meaning is clear. They escort her through the back of the ballroom, away from the guests, and down the same sterile service corridors she had sought refuge in earlier. The sounds of the party, already starting to resume its self-important hum, fade behind her. They lead her to a service exit that opens into a dark, grimy alley. The door clicks shut behind her, a sound of finality. She stands alone in the cool night air, the smell of garbage replacing the scent of gardenias. She is jobless, isolated, and has just been threatened by one of the most powerful men in the city. They have taken her job, but they could not take her dignity. In the quiet darkness of the alley, a quiet vow solidifies into unbreakable resolve. They started this. They humiliated her, then tried to buy her, then discarded her, but they will not get the final word. They will not erase her. The official story, released to the press before dawn, is a masterpiece of corporate spin. It speaks of a minor medical incident, praises the swift response of hotel staff, and confirms that the Finch family is safe and expresses their gratitude for the outpouring of support. Alara's name is absent. Her face is absent. Her actions are absorbed into a faceless collective, just as Marcus had intended. But in the digital age, the official story is rarely the only story. By mid-morning, a video, shot on a smartphone from a table across the ballroom, appears online. It is raw, shaky, and utterly damning. The video begins with Alistair's condescending dismissal of Alara, his voice clear and cruel. It captures Lily's terrified, silent choking. It shows Alistair's face pale and frozen in a mask of helpless panic. And then it shows Alara. It shows her moving with purpose while others scattered, her calm authority, her precise, life-saving actions. It shows her kneeling and comforting the child with a tenderness that feels almost sacred in its authenticity. It shows the entire, unvarnished truth. The video doesn't just go viral, it explodes. It is a perfect, self-contained morality play for the social media age. The hashtags bloom like wildfire: Heimlich hero, the waitress who didn't wait, Finch freeze. By noon, Alara is the most talked about person in the country. She is no longer an invisible servant, she is a symbol. Her phone, a simple prepaid device, buzzes incessantly with calls from reporters, producers, and agents, all wanting a piece of her story. Tabloid shows offer staggering sums for an exclusive tell-all. She ignores them all. She knows that their interest is sensational, not sincere. They want to package her pain and her heroism into a consumable product, just as Marcus did. But one message catches her eye. It's from Sarah Jenkins, a highly respected local journalist known for her integrity and in-depth human interest reporting. The message is simple. I don't want to buy your story, I would be honored to help you tell it. The truth is powerful, you are powerful. Alara looks at the video playing on her small laptop screen. She sees her own hands, her own face. The lens did not blink. It saw her when no one else did. She realizes that the video is not just evidence, it is power. And power, she knows, is not something to be sold. It is something to be used. She takes a deep breath and types a reply to Sarah Jenkins. Yes, I'm ready to talk. The interview takes place not in a flashy television studio, but in a quiet, sunlit room at the local public library. There are no dramatic camera angles, no sensational graphics. There is just Sarah Jenkins with her kind, intelligent eyes and Alara, dressed not in a uniform, but in a simple, elegant blue dress that speaks of quiet dignity. Sarah begins not with the choking, but with Alara. Before last night, she says, her voice gentle, the world knew you as a waitress. Tell us who you were before you were a waitress. Alara takes a moment, her hands resting calmly in her lap. Before I was a waitress, she begins, her accent clear and steady, I was many things. I was a daughter. I was a student. And for 10 years in a very busy hospital in Lagos, Nigeria, I was a registered nurse. The statement lands with the quiet force of a seismic event. Sarah Jenkins lets the words hang in the air, allowing their full weight to settle. A nurse. Not an unskilled laborer, not an anonymous servant, a trained, experienced medical professional. So when you saw Lily Finch choking, Sarah continues, what went through your mind? Alara looks directly into the camera, her gaze unwavering. She is no longer speaking to a journalist, she is speaking to the world. There was no time to think, she says. My hands remembered what my mind had been trained to do. In that moment, I was not a waitress, I was a nurse. My only thought was of my patient. She then calmly, clinically, describes the procedure, explaining the medical science behind the Heimlich maneuver. Her language is precise, knowledgeable, and authoritative. The public narrative, already tilting, now shatters completely and reforms around this new, undeniable truth. The clip of her saying, I was a registered nurse, becomes the defining moment. It is replayed on every news channel, shared millions of times. The contrast is devastating. Alistair Finch, the billionaire who mocked a woman's accent, had unknowingly been mocking a healthcare professional with more practical, life-saving knowledge in her little finger than he had in his entire empire. The viral video is now viewed through this new lens. His frozen helplessness is no longer just panic. It is the ultimate failure of a man whose power proved to be an illusion. Her calm competence is no longer just a lucky intervention. It is the work of a seasoned pro. The public outcry is swift and ferocious. Alistair Finch is no longer just a concerned father caught in a bad moment. He is a symbol of arrogant ignorance, a man who couldn't see the value of a person standing right in front of him. The reversal is absolute. Alara, the woman they tried to erase, is now the hero of the story, her voice, once dismissed, now the most powerful and respected in the nation. literal goosebumps when she spoke. The truth, once silenced, is now screaming from every screen. The fallout for Alastair Finch is catastrophic. His company's stock plummets. The board calls an emergency meeting. Sponsors of the charity gala pull their funding. He is engulfed in a firestorm of his own making. The public doesn't just see him as a bully, they see him as a fool, a man so blinded by his own privilege that he nearly let his daughter die. He is forced into a desperate scramble for damage control. He issues a public apology, a slick, lawyer-vetted statement that rings hollow. He knows it's not enough. He needs more than a press release. He needs absolution, and there is only one person who can grant it. He arranges a meeting with Alara. He offers to fly her to his corporate headquarters on his private jet. She declines. They meet, at her request, in the same quiet library where she gave her interview. It is her ground, her place of power. He arrives without his entourage, looking smaller and older than he did in the ballroom. He offers her a job, a high-paying executive position in his company's philanthropic division. He offers her a house. He offers her a blank check, telling her to write down any number and it will be hers. He is trying to solve the problem the only way he knows how, with money. Alara listens patiently, her hands folded on the simple wooden table between them. When he is finished, she looks at him, not with anger or triumph, but with a clear, appraising gaze that seems to see right through him. "Mr. Finch," she says, her voice even, "you still don't understand. This was never about money." She leans forward slightly. "I don't want your job or your house, and I will not take your money. If I take it, this becomes a story about a waitress who got a lucky payday. But this story is not about me. It is about all the people like me, the ones you don't see." Alastair looks confused. "Then what do you want?" That night, in a room full of the most successful people in the city, only one person knew what to do. "And you laughed at her," she states, not as an accusation, but as a simple fact. No one who works in a restaurant, a hotel, or any public space should ever feel as helpless as you looked. And no family should ever have to depend on luck to save their child's life. She outlines her request, her vision. It is not for personal gain. It is for systemic change. "I want you to use your money to fund a citywide initiative. Mandatory, certified, and fully paid first aid and CPR training for every single hospitality worker in this city. From the buzzboys to the concierges, no one is exempt. You will create a foundation to fund it in perpetuity." It is a form of justice Alastair had never conceived of. It is not about restitution for one. It is about prevention for all. It is quiet, structural, and will save countless lives. It is a legacy he can build from the ashes of his humiliation. For the first time, he is speechless not from panic, but from the sheer, unexpected grace of her demand. Humbled and with the eyes of the world upon him, Alastair has no choice but to agree. But as the process begins, something shifts within him. The project, initially a mandatory act of public penance, becomes a genuine mission. He throws the full weight of his corporate resources behind it, not just his money. The foundation is established, the Lily and Alara Initiative. Its sole purpose is to fund and oversee the implementation of what the media quickly dubs the Alara Protocol. The protocol is a sweeping new policy requiring all hospitality businesses in the city to provide their employees with certified emergency response training during paid work hours. It's a radical, tangible change that will transform the industry. The first institution to adopt the Alara Protocol is, by a stroke of poetic justice, the Astoria Hotel. The manager who suspended Alara is forced to make a public apology and is reassigned. The hotel, desperate to rehabilitate its image, goes one step further. They offer Alara her job back with a promotion and a significant raise. She politely declines the offer to be a waitress. Instead, through her lawyer, she negotiates a new role, a paid consultant, hired to oversee the launch and implementation of the training program within the very hotel that cast her out. Her first day back at the Astoria is surreal. She walks in through the grand front entrance, not the service alley. She is dressed in a smart business suit. The staff, her former colleagues, look at her with a mixture of awe and reverence. The manager, a new one, greets her with a deep, respectful bow. She is no longer a ghost in the halls. She is the architect of its new conscience. She works with a team of medical professionals to design the curriculum, ensuring it is practical, accessible, and culturally sensitive to the diverse workforce. She insists that the training be offered in multiple languages. She is not just a figurehead. She is the hands-on, guiding force, her past life as a nurse and her recent life as a service worker merging into a unique, powerful expertise. The system that was designed to keep people like her invisible is now being rebuilt under her direct supervision. Weeks after the protocol's launch, Alara receives a handwritten invitation on thick, cream-colored cardstock. The handwriting is a child's scrawl. "Please come for tea," it reads. From Lily. Alara accepts. She arrives at the Finch estate, a place that looks more like a museum than a home, and is shown not into a formal sitting room but into a bright, colorful playroom. Lily is there, sitting at a small table with a tea set laid out for two. There are no cameras, no assistants, no pretense. Lily is no longer the timid, anxious child from the gala. She is bright, chatty, and full of life. She pours imaginary tea for Alara and tells her about her school, her friends, and her new puppy. Then, she grows quiet and pushes a piece of paper across the table. It is a drawing, rendered in the beautifully chaotic style of a child's crayon art. It depicts a superhero, not with a cape, but in a black and white waitress uniform. The hero is holding the hand of a small, smiling girl. On the superhero's chest is a single prominent detail, a bright, shining pin with a red cross on it. "That's you," Lily says softly. "You're my superhero." Alara feels a lump form in her throat. This, more than any news article or public accolade, is the true measure of her victory. It is the simple, profound gratitude of a child. She spends the rest of the afternoon with Lily, reading stories from a book of Nigerian folk tales she brought as a gift. From the shadow of the doorway, Alastair watches, unseen. He listens to Alara's voice, the same voice he once mocked, now weaving tales of clever tortoises and magical yams for his rapt daughter. He sees the genuine warmth and affection between them. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't offer a grand verbal apology. He simply watches, his face a complex mixture of regret and a dawning, quiet respect. When Alara leaves, he meets her in the grand foyer. He doesn't say thank you. The words are too small. He just looks her in the eye and gives a slow, deliberate nod. It is an acknowledgement of a debt he can never repay, a silent concession of her profound and lasting impact on his life and his family. Her dignity has been restored, not by his power, but on her own quiet, unassailable terms. The official press conference for the city-wide launch of the Alara Protocol is a major media event. It is held in the same grand ballroom at the Astoria Hotel where the story began. The room is packed with journalists, city officials, and hospitality industry leaders. Alara sits in the front row, a place of honor. She is not a servant in the background, but the central figure of the day. When Alastair Finch takes the podium, a hush falls over the room. His usual corporate swagger is gone. He looks directly at Alara before he begins to speak. His speech is unlike any he has ever given. It is stripped of jargon and platitudes. It is a raw public act of contrition. He recounts the events of the gala night, not with excuses but with a brutal honesty that shocks the audience. "That night I failed," he says, his voice steady. "I failed as a host. I failed as a father, and I failed as a human being. I looked at a woman of incredible skill and character, and I saw only a uniform. My arrogance was a blindfold, and in my blindness, I was useless." He turns again to face Alara directly. "Miss Alara did not just save my daughter's life. She saved me from my own ignorance. She taught me that true power is not measured in stock prices or market share. It is measured in what you do for others when they are in need. I run a global corporation and I command thousands of employees, but on that night, Miss Alara was the only person in the room with true power." He goes on to praise her not for her bravery, a word that implies a surprising act, but for her professionalism, a word that acknowledges her deep, practiced skill. He gives her complete and total credit for the initiative, making it clear that he is merely the funder of her vision. He ends by publicly, and by name, apologizing to her for his behavior. "I am profoundly sorry," he says. And for the first time, the words sound genuine. When he is finished, The room responds not with the polite, obligatory applause of a corporate event, but with a spontaneous, thunderous standing ovation. They are applauding not the billionaire, but the quiet, dignified woman in the front row who refused to be silenced, and who in doing so had taught them all a lesson about where true value lies. The branding for the Alara protocol is revealed on a large screen behind the podium. The logo is elegant and minimalist. It is not a corporate swoosh or a set of interlocking letters. It is a simple, stylized drawing of two hands, cupped together as if in an offering, gently cradling a small, circular pin with a cross at its center. It is an echo of her emblem, a tribute to the quiet symbol that held the secret of her true identity. The pin has been transformed. It is no longer just a personal memento from a past life, hidden on a uniform. It is now a public emblem of a new standard of care, a city-wide promise of safety and readiness. Every worker who completes the training will receive a real version of this pin to wear on their uniform. It will be a mark of distinction, a signal to the public that the person serving them is not just a waiter or a busboy, but a trained first responder. When it is Alara's turn to speak, she approaches the podium with a quiet grace. She is wearing a simple but elegant dark blue blazer. Pinned to her lapel is not the new, shiny version of the pin, but her original one. It is small, the red enamel slightly faded, the metal worn from years of being touched in moments of stress and memory. It looks humble and authentic against the backdrop of the grand ballroom. She speaks briefly, her voice full of a calm authority that commands the room. She thanks Mr. Finch for funding the initiative. She thanks the city for embracing it. But mostly she speaks to the hospitality workers, her former colleagues. This pin, she says, touching her old, worn emblem, is not a reward. It is a responsibility. It means you are the person who runs toward the chaos, not away from it. It means you are the person who sees, who listens, and who acts. It means you have the power to turn a moment of panic into a moment of hope. The meaning of the object has completed its journey. It began as a secret, a symbol of a life and a skill set that society had deemed irrelevant. It became a focal point of revelation, the key that unlocked the truth of her identity. Now, it is a legacy. It is a symbol of quiet, prepared strength, a promise that no one will be invisible again. The crowd watches her, their faces full of admiration. Did the object's meaning change for you too? The question seems to float in the collective consciousness of the room, a shared understanding of the profound transformation they have all witnessed. 6 months pass. The Alara protocol is now a fixture in the city's landscape. The final scene is not one of galas or press conferences. It is a quiet montage of everyday life, transformed. We see a young busboy in a bustling diner notice a man clutching his chest. He doesn't panic. He calmly alerts his manager while signaling to a coworker to call 911, his hands already moving to loosen the man's collar, his eyes on the pin on his own uniform. We see a hotel concierge at a check-in desk, speaking in fluent Spanish to a frantic mother whose child is having a severe allergic reaction. She calmly administers an EpiPen, her voice a soothing balm, the protocol pin gleaming on her lapel. We see a classroom in the basement of a community center. A diverse group of kitchen staff, cooks, dishwashers, prep chefs, are practicing CPR on dummies. Their instructor, a former paramedic, walks among them, correcting their form. They are laughing, learning, empowered. On each of their uniforms, a small new pin. The final shot settles on Alara. She is standing at the back of this classroom, an unannounced observer. She is not teaching. She is not in the spotlight. She is simply watching her legacy take root. Her work here is done. A young waiter, having just mastered the compression technique, looks up and catches her eye. He doesn't know her full story, but he knows she is the reason he is here, the reason he now has the skills to save a life. He gives her a simple, profound nod of thanks. Alara offers a small, quiet smile in return. It is a smile of deep, settled peace. She did not seek revenge, fame, or fortune. She sought justice, and she built it not with a lawsuit, but with a lesson. Her presence changed one room, and that change is now rippling out, creating a city of quiet heroes. She turns and walks away, her footsteps silent, leaving behind a room full of people who are more prepared, more connected, and more powerful than they were before. Sometimes justice arrives without applause. It arrives in the quiet competence of hands that are ready to help, and in the silent promise of a small, unassuming pin.